Sarashivasamarambham Shankaracharya Madhyamam Asmaracharya Paryantam Vande Guru Paramparam. Om. Good. Be seated, please. Good. Om Sahana Vavatu Sahano Bhunaktu Sahaviryan Karavavahai Tejasvinavadhitamastu ma vidvishavahai. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Om. Good. Welcome back, and welcome to all our students attending this class online. Happy New Year to you all, if I haven't had a chance to wish you so far. We'll continue this morning with our study of Uddhava Gita. We saw the very first verse of chapter 6 in last week's class, or 2 weeks ago class, in our prior class. And I mentioned then, it was a week ago, I mentioned then that we are starting the text with a bang. And the bang, of course, was the topic of Maya, one of the really, this microphone is not working today. Stay there. Yeah. Maya is one of the really perplexing topics of Advaita Vedanta. Rightly so, its very name, Maya, suggests that it's something that's not very straightforward, not very obvious. So we want to make sure we understand what is Maya as we proceed today in our class. First of all, as I said last time, to translate Maya as illusion in this context is absolutely wrong. Maya, the word Maya, as used in the teachings of Advaita Vedanta, many of you remember from last week where I called it a creative capacity through which I add all the little bits, a creative capacity wielded by Ishvara through which non-dual Brahman becomes apparent as a world of duality. Those words are really carefully chosen. I'll give it to you one more time. Maya is a creative capacity wielded by Ishvara through which non-dual Brahman appears in the form of duality. That's quite a carefully constructed definition, based entirely on these teachings. If you hold to that definition, you'll be in good shape. If you go back to the world is a dream, the world is an illusion, you will never understand the wisdom of the ancient rishis, because that's not what they said. That's not what they meant. So let us proceed with this proper understanding. And the reason that Sri Krishna introduced this topic of Maya is in response to Uddhava's question at the end of chapter 5. You remember Uddhava asked about bondage and liberation. Bandha and moksha was his question. And Sri Krishna is addressing it in this very profound way. It's significant. that he's taking this profound approach. It's necessary for this reason. If bondage is real, it won't go away. If moksha doesn't exist in the present moment, that which doesn't exist can't become existent. In Bhagavad Gita, Sri Krishna says, Nasato vidyate bhavo, na bhavo vidyate sataha. I'll paraphrase it for you. That which exists doesn't go out of existence. That which doesn't exist can't suddenly become existent. So, if bondage exists, if it really exists, you're stuck and you're wasting your time with Vedanta because there's no way out. On the other hand, conversely, if moksha is something that will take place at some future time, if a non-existent moksha will become existent at some future time, that presumption violates what Sri Krishna taught in Bhagavad Gita. The non-existent cannot become existent, and based on this, in a prior class we discussed that the world is not absolutely real. Let me introduce one important perspective that I think is crucial for you to understand. This is a perspective on reality that's inherent in the teachings of the ancient rishis, but really made so clear by Shankaracharya. This is a division of reality into 3 levels. I've put this on the board before. I don't want to go through all of that. We have these long, complicated Sanskrit names. Some of you may remember Paramarthika Satta, Vyavaharika Satta, and Pratibhasika Satta. If you're not familiar with those terms, don't worry. They're actually a nuisance in too many syllables. The meaning is not so difficult. There is, according to Shankara, based on the teachings of the ancient rishis, an absolute reality, the reality of non-dual Brahman. There is we'll call it an apparent reality. That's a nice word, by the way. An apparent means you see it. But what you see is not necessarily real. You see the sunset. No, the sun doesn't go down. You see the blue sky. Air is colorless. What is apparent is not necessarily real. One of my favorite examples you've heard me give is that this seems solid. It's made of atoms, which are almost entirely empty space. So what we perceive is, and the best word for it, apparent. Apparent means you experience it, but it's not absolutely real. And then Shankara gives a 3rd level of reality. First is absolutely real. Second is apparently real. And third, we can call it projected, based on its Sanskrit name, but it's that which isn't real at all. It's the elephant that chases you in your dream, or it's the snake you see in a dark alley. They don't have any reality whatsoever. They are projected reality. So as we go forward in this class today, please keep these 3 levels of reality in mind. There's an absolute reality, which is non-dual Brahman. There's the apparent reality in which we live our lives, and there is a projected reality, which is that's truly illusion. The snake you see in the alley is illusory. The elephant that's chasing you in your dream, that's truly illusory. But we cannot use that word illusion to refer to this. This is not an illusion, but it's also not real. It is, to use our word, apparent. This will help a lot. And this, excuse me, this is crucial in response to Arjuna's, Uddhava's question, because, I wanted to see that first. It's crucial because bondage and moksha are not absolutely real, nor are they projected. They are apparent. They're part of the world. You feel yourself to be bound. We experience ourselves in a condition of suffering. That experiential reality is bondage, bandha, and that is the intermediate reality, apparent reality. And moksha too. Moksha doesn't, this is so significant. Moksha is an already existent fact. Moksha doesn't come. Moksha is already existent for Atma, your true self. But for the person sitting in your chair, there's ignorance preventing you from discovering that your true nature, as Satchidananda Atma, is already mukta, already freed, never subject to bondage of any kind. So this approach of apparent reality is crucial for understanding these teachings. And if we understand, then we'll have, in fact, you'll see that in the very first verse. We'll see that. We saw the first verse in the prior class, but I'd like to go back and just review it very quickly, where Sri Krishna says, bandhaha muktaha iti vyakhya, that these two words, bondage and liberation, are described from a particular standpoint, gunataha me, according to my gunas, apparent reality. Gunas are apparent reality. Remember, that's the ancient worldview. Instead of looking at the world in terms of matter and energy, they looked at the world in terms of sattva, rajas, tamas. Ancient worldview, apparent reality. So he says that bondage and moksha exist in this apparent reality, na vastutaha, but not in reality, not in absolute reality. Gunasya maya mulatvat, because this apparent world is the result of maya. Being the result of maya, again, what is maya? Creative capacity wielded by Ishvara, through which non-dual Brahman appears as a world of duality. Which means, since the world is born of maya, it is apparently real, not absolutely real. And Sri Krishna concludes, na me mokshaha na bandhanam. For me, there is no moksha or bondage. Why? Sri Krishna knows better. He says, Sri Krishna is freed from the particular ignorance that causes suffering, that causes bondage. Sri Krishna, we could say, is enlightened. And so being enlightened, Sri Krishna knows that moksha and bandha, liberation and bondage, are only apparently real. And here's something that's amusing and helpful. That which is apparent is real until it's not, meaning until you get it, that it's not. It's like in a dream, in a dream, the elephant that's chasing you is real until you wake up. The snake in the alley is threatening until you get it, that it's only a rope. In the same way, the world of samsara, worldly suffering, is real until you wake up. It's a different kind of waking up, like you wake up out of a dream, like you wake up out of the illusion of the snake. Suppose you wake up out of the dream of taking this apparent reality as being absolutely real. That's a mistake. That's ignorance. It's like in the dream, you took the elephant as being as real. This is such an important point. In the dream, the elephant scared you because it was as real as you. In the dream, when you woke up, you realized that, oh, I'm more real than the dream. Therefore, I'm more real than the dream elephant. Therefore, the dream elephant can't threaten you when you're awake. In the same way, the suffering of life is apparently present. We experience it. No one can deny that we experience suffering. But suppose you wake up from this so-called dream. Life is not a dream, but it's a metaphor. Suppose you wake up out of the dream of ignorance and discover that you are more real than this apparent reality. Notice, when you know that you're more real than a dream elephant can't hurt you. When you know that you're more real than this apparent world, nothing in the world can threaten you. This is just brilliant, brilliant teachings. Now, before we proceed, there are a couple of questions that came. First from Reshma. She asks, with regard to Sri Krishna, who said, "Na me moksha na bandhanam." Sri Krishna says, for me, there's no moksha, there's no bondage. So she asks, who is the me that Krishna is referring to? Also, if it is Ishvara that Krishna is referring to, then how can this apply to jivas like us? Meaning, if Sri Krishna is speaking from this cosmic standpoint, and he says from a cosmic standpoint there's no bondage or moksha, then she is asking, well, that's okay for Ishvara. What about for us mere mortals? Sri Krishna is not speaking as Ishvara here. Those of you who have attended the Bhagavad Gita class, you've heard me talk about this, that Sri Krishna refers to himself in different ways. Sometimes he refers to himself as Arjuna's friend in the Bhagavad Gita. Sometimes he refers to himself as Ishvara, sometimes as Brahman. But here, he's referring to himself as, who is Devaki Nandana, the beloved son of his mother, which means an incarnation of Lord Vishnu in human form. That's the level that he's referring to here. And being in human form, we could ask, is he an ignorant human or an enlightened human? He's freed from ignorance, he's enlightened. And here's the point. If a human form like Sri Krishna can be free from ignorance, so can you. That's the point. That's the answer to Reshma's question. Last question. If this universe, and listen, he's written this quite nicely, Palab Banerjee in Kolkata. He says, if this universe is a projection of non-dual Brahman by Ishvara with the help of Maya, so he understood my definition quite well, then Lord Krishna, with that particular name and form, is also a projection of non-dual Brahman, meaning not as real as non-dual Brahman. Sri Krishna is not as real as non-dual Brahman. If that is true, then who is preaching the Bhagavad Gita or the Uddhava Gita, and to whom is it being preached? It's not absolutely. Sri Krishna is not real. Bhagavad Gita is not absolutely real. Uddhava Gita is not absolutely real. Swami Tadatmananda, everything is not absolutely real, but there's no problem because the problem we seek to resolve, the problem of samsara, the problem of bondage, the problem is not absolutely real. If the problem is not absolutely real, do you need a real solution? You may remember the metaphor I've given. If you're dreaming at night, and in your dream you are so thirsty, you're so thirsty. Now, next to your bed there's a glass of water, but does that glass of water help you in your dream? In your dream, you require dream water to resolve your thirst. That's the metaphor. The dream thirst is not absolutely real. All you need is dream water. You see where that goes? Bondage is not absolutely real. All you need is an apparent Sri Krishna, an apparent Uddhava Gita, an apparent Swami Tadatmananda. It's not absolutely real. Fortunately, it's good enough. That's the point. And that's the answer to Paulo's question. Okay, now we can proceed with our text. This introduction was really important stuff, so I wanted to take my time with that so we can understand. Let's continue now with the text. Shoka mohau sukham dukkam, shoka mohau sukham dukkam, deha patischa mayaya, deha patischa mayaya, swapno yathatmana khyatihi, swapno yathatmana khyatihi, samsritir natu vastavi, samsritir natu vastavi. Good. Vasanti, would you just check the thermostat? It feels warm. It might just be me. Okay. So here he says that Maya, in the second line, due to Maya, what comes into existence in this apparent world is deha apatihi. The acquisition of a physical body, rebirth, is due to Maya. It's all part of this apparent reality. Not only does the body come into existence, but also, no, I don't need the fan. Yeah, but thank you. Just my body. Shoka. Shoka mohau. If you have a body, like I do, then you have shoka. I'm too hot. And moha. It's not too hot. The temperature in the room is just fine. But because I have a physical body, I am subject to thinking it's too hot and subject to making the mistake of thinking the room is too hot. Therefore, I'm subject to sukham and dukkham, happiness and suffering. All of this comes along with the package, deha, apatihi, rebirth, and all of that is due to Maya. All of that is part of this apparent level of reality. It's not illusory, like the dream elephant or the rope snake, nor is it absolutely real, like non-dual Brahman. Apparent reality, we call it vyavaharika satta, and in other contexts we use the term mithya to describe this apparent reality. This is not our topic right now, so I won't go further on it. But continuing on the topic, Sri Krishna says that the birth of a body, the experience of shoka and moha, the experience of sukha and dukkha, he says, it is all yatha, in the third line, swapnaha yatha. It is yatha, like swapnaha, like a dream. Notice he says yatha. It's like a dream. It's not a dream. That's a very common misunderstanding of Advaita Vedanta. The world is illusion. The world is a dream. What does Sri Krishna say here? Yatha swapnaha, like a dream. Okay? Like a dream, this world is atmanaha khyatihi. It is khyati, a projection, atmanaha, of atma. And we can take this in different way. Actually, the best way, my translation here is good. Imagined or projected by the mind. What that means is in our minds, due to ignorance, we attribute to this apparent world a reality it doesn't deserve. Like in a dream, I know that's a complex concept, but the metaphor makes it clear. In a dream, you attribute to the elephant a kind of reality it doesn't deserve in the dream. Just as you make the elephant more real than it really is in a dream, we do the same now in the waking state. That's what it means. Atmanha khyatihi. Doesn't mean that you create the world. You can actually, in these Sanskrit words, you can get that. And there's a philosophy called idealism, and there are some side schools of Vedanta that actually claim that the world is a projection of your mind. And traditional Advaita Vedanta rejects that. First of all, I don't know about your mind. My mind is certainly not capable of projecting the complexity of this world. So anyway, it's just an unreasonable position. It's not accepted by Advaita Vedanta. The world is Ishvara's projection, fine. The world is not your projection. What is your projection? You project reality on this world. You make it in your mind. You make it more real than it truly is. And when you make it more real, it becomes threatening. Right? Think of health issues, death. Health issues become threatening when you make them more real than they are. If you know that those health issues don't affect your true nature as Satchidananda Atma, they don't affect pure consciousness, your essence, at all. When you know that, they're not problematic, even health issues, even life-threatening health issues. So this is the root problem, is attributing to the world more reality than it really deserves, like the dream elephant. So, swapnaha yatha, like a dream. Atmanaha khyatihi. You project reality on the world like you project reality on a dream elephant, but samsritihi. Samsriti is a synonym for samsara. Samsara would be familiar to most of you. Samsriti means exactly the same thing. One is masculine in gender, the other is feminine. That's the only difference. So samsara, which I like to translate as the world of suffering. Not just world of suffering, life of suffering. Samsaraha natu vastavi is not absolutely real. As we saw in a prior verse, he's reiterating this again. The world is not as real as it seems to be. When you wake up out of a dream, the dream elephant no longer threatens you. When you wake up out of the dream of ignorance, the problems of worldly life will no longer threaten you. Next. Vidya vidye mamatanu, vidya vidye mamatanu, vidyuddhava sharirinam, Vidyuddhava sharirinam moksha bandhakari adye moksha bandhakari adye mayaya me vinirmite mayaya me vinirmite. Vidya and avidya, mama tanu. Very odd expression. Tanu is body. Ignorance and knowledge are my body. So I've translated here manifestations. That makes more sense. So they are projections of Ishvara. And now Sri Krishna is indeed speaking as Ishvara, not as an avatara, right? Krishna avatara did not create the world. Ishvara created the world. So we want to get the right perspective when Sri Krishna is speaking. So speaking as Ishvara, he says ignorance and knowledge, avidya, vidya and avidya, other way around, knowledge and ignorance. And here we're talking about not worldly knowledge and ignorance, like do you know computers? Not that kind of knowledge, but rather with regard to your true nature and with regard to the nature of the world. Knowledge is when you know you are more real than the world. Ignorance is when you wrongly assume the world is as real as you are, therefore threatening. So these two, mama, tanu, form my body. They are my manifestations. The commentator says they are my shaktis, my powers. I think manifestation is perhaps a little bit better. He says, then, vidhi Uddhava. Uddhava, O Uddhava, vidhi. Understand this, that knowledge and ignorance are my manifestations in the world. And then the next sentence, sharirinam moksha bandhakari. And they are sharirinam for anyone who has a body, which would include you and me, anyone who is embodied. These two, knowledge and ignorance, are moksha bandhakari. They are the cause for moksha and bondage. Knowledge is the cause, take it the other way around. Ignorance is the cause for bondage. When you imagine the world to be as real as you, then you find it threatening and you suffer. That is bondage. You're bound to a life of suffering. On the other hand, knowledge that the world is not as real as you, like the dream elephant, that knowledge leads to moksha. Moksha here, freedom from suffering. Okay. And this bondage and moksha are adye. And here it's used metaphorically for anadi, not metaphorically, as a synonym for anadi, beginningless. And beginningless is a reference to the fact that when were you born enlightened? Never born enlightened. We're always born ignorant. Life after life after life, born in ignorance. And then if you ask, well, what about the first birth? We've discussed that several times, right? And discussed that there is no first birth. For several reasons. We'll take it in the best answer is according to the doctrine of karma. So if there was a first birth, that there was no karma to give rise to that birth, therefore it goes against the doctrine of karma that says you get born because of your karma. So if you accept the doctrine of karma, you have to reject the idea of a first birth. Does that make sense? According to the doctrine of karma, there is no such thing as a first birth. There have been an infinite number of prior births, and each time you got born, you didn't get born enlightened. Each time you got born, you were born ignorant. So these two, bondage and moksha, are in the last line, nirmate. They are created me mayaya, through my creative capacity of Maya. So here we can see once again, Sri Krishna is speaking as Ishvara. As Ishvara, Sri Krishna says, I wield the power of Maya. I cause this universe to come into existence again and again, and I cause that your existence, your rebirth again and again. According to the laws of karma, Sri Krishna says, I created all that. Now, this next verse is really important. Let's see that. We're doing time. Okay. Ekasyaiva mamamshasya, ekasyaiva mamamshasya, jivasyaiva maharmate, jivasyaiva mahamate, bandhosya vidyaya nadir, bandhosya nadir, vidyaya chatate taraha, vidyaya chatate taraha. Let's take the second half first, because it relates to what we just discussed. And he says, bandhaha asya, asya for a person, bandhaha, bondage, is avidyaya, due to ignorance. So understand clearly, bondage here means being bound to a life of suffering. And why are you bound to a life of suffering? Due to ignorance. You assume that the world is as real as you, therefore threatening. So, bandhaha avidyaya, that the bondage to worldly suffering is due to ignorance. The ignorance which is anadihi, as we just discussed, which is beginningless ignorance. Again, it's not that it can always be turned around. It means then, oh yes, first time I was born, I was ignorant. That statement is a product of ignorance. There is no first birth. We just got done talking about that. Okay. Vidyayacha tata ittaraha. Ittaraha, the other one. What is the other one? Compared to bandha, bondage, the other one is moksha, liberation. Ittaraha, the other one. Tata, and ittara, the other one, moksha, is vidyaya, due to knowledge, due to, and again, specifically, discovering. Let's put it in slightly different terms. So far I've been saying discovering that the world is not as real as you, because the focus here has been on the world. Let's flip it around. You. After all, we say again and again that Vedanta is primarily Atma Vichara, self-inquiry, looking within to discover the truth of who you are. The truth of who you are is unchanging consciousness. And that unchanging consciousness is certainly more real than the world around you. In fact, one of our definitions of real, interesting, trikala abaditam, and I'll paraphrase that which doesn't change is real. How's that for a definition? That which is unchanging is real. Everything around us is constantly changing. Our Buddhist friends love to talk about this. In Sanskrit, we say everything is anitya, time-bound, transient, always changing, and our Buddhist friends in the Pali language say anicca. It is anicca means anitya, changing, transient, impermanent. Everything in the world is impermanent. Is there anything that doesn't come and go? Everything in the world comes and goes. But what about pure consciousness, which existed before your conception and will continue to exist after your body is cremated? That pure consciousness doesn't come and go. It is truly real. By that definition, that which is unchanging is real. That which is changing is less real. Notice I said less real. I didn't say unreal. This is a subtle point of philosophy. Again, and another common conclusion, instead of another common misunderstanding, is Vedanta says the world is unreal. You've heard that many, many times. That's like saying the world is illusion, the world is a dream. It's another misunderstanding. If you say the world is unreal, it means that the world has no existence whatsoever. If the world has no existence whatsoever, what can make you suffer? So just to make this very clear, in the dream, you endow the dream elephant with reality, and therefore you become afraid. How about this elephant, the one I'm holding in my hand? Are you afraid of this elephant? Not at all. Why? There's no elephant. There's no elephant, there's no problem. It's unreal. That which is unreal doesn't exist and can't threaten you. So notice the point I'm making. To misinterpret these teachings and say the world is unreal, if the world is unreal like this elephant, what are we talking about? We perceive a world. You don't perceive this elephant, okay? So this elephant is unreal. This world is apparently real. We're back to that language again. Now, one last point here, and then you'll see something new up in the first half. We'll see that in just a moment. But before we continue, when we say that that which is real doesn't change. Now, notice Sri Krishna has called knowledge and ignorance, he said, are anadi, beginningless, in the prior verse. He said they're beginningless. And there's something unique about ignorance. To say beginningless, anything that has a beginning has an end, right? And my standard joke, even this class comes to an end. So anything that has a beginning has an end. This body has a beginning, has an end. Which conversely, anything that doesn't have a beginning, logically speaking, has no end. Consciousness wasn't born. Consciousness has no beginning. So then, what about this ignorance? Ignorance has no beginning. Ignorance is an exception to this logical rule. Ignorance has no beginning, but it most certainly has an end. You know that very well. Beginningless ignorance has an end. And if you say, wait a minute, how can that be? That violates the logical law. Well, wait a minute. If you want to be totally logical, then you have to talk about absolute reality. And at the level of absolute reality, ignorance is only apparently real. And apparently real, a real ignorance, as I said at the beginning of the class, if ignorance and bondage are real, you're stuck. There's no way out. But if ignorance and suffering and bondage are apparently real, there is a way out. And let's apply that now to ignorance in particular. If ignorance is absolutely real, there's no solution to the problem of suffering. If ignorance is apparently real, it can have no beginning, but it can come to an end. Apparently real ignorance has no beginning, but comes to an end. Now, the last part of this verse is something. Let's see how much. We could spend a whole class on it. I think we're going to do the short version here. Ekasya, so that in the third line, asya bandhaha, this bondage, this beginningless bondage due to ignorance exists for one, for him. For whom? Top line, ekasya, for that one person, ekasya. In the second line, jivasya, for that one jiva, for a person who is mama amshasya, who is an amsha of me. And there are commentaries. That word mama amsha also comes in Bhagavad Gita, 15th chapter. And that ends up being the subject for a long commentary. In what sense? Sri Krishna says that this bondage and moksha exists for the jiva who is an amsha, a part of me. Mama amshasya, a part of me. Mahamate, O wise one, O Uddhava, bondage and moksha exist for a jiva who is an amsha, a part of me. There's a lot of discussion about, I'm smiling because some Vedantins, scholarly Vedantins, love to argue. And they argue about this endlessly. What does it mean? We are all little bits of Ishvara? Actually, little bits of Ishvara is not Advaita Vedanta. If a little bit, then Advaita goes out the window. There are many bits. One Ishvara and many little bits, many little amshas, many little parts. So, in fact, this is similar to the teachings of Vishishta Advaita, the so-called qualified non-dualism taught by Ramanuja and his followers. Shankara doesn't teach this, nor does the ancient rishis really teach us. So what does this mean then when Sri Krishna says we are all amshas, we are all little bits of Ishvara? And the best way to explain this is to go back to one of our favorite metaphors used in the teachings of Advaita Vedanta, and that is one consciousness with many reflections. One consciousness, many reflections. And you may remember the metaphor we've used. If you have a bucket filled with water outside under the sun shines down on that bucket and reflects the water. In this metaphor, that sun represents the one all-pervasive consciousness. And when Sri Krishna here refers to himself as Ishvara, that Ishvara is identical to that consciousness. So that consciousness, represented by the sun, is reflected by this bucket of water. Do you remember the elements of the metaphor? This one is the bucket, the body. Bucket represents your physical body. The water inside the bucket represents your sukshma sharira, life force, mind, intellect, all your faculties, senses, etc., all of that collectively known as sukshma sharira, subtle body. Bucket is sthula sharira. Water is sukshma sharira. The sun reflects off that bucket, and you have a reflection. And notice that the reflection might be affected by the ripples in the water. Just like reflected consciousness is affected by the nature of your mind. This is a long, complicated topic. Many of you have heard it here before, so I'm just passing a brief reference to this. Now, to finish this metaphor, outside, there's not one bucket of water. There are 7 billion. You can imagine why I chose that number. It's approximately the population of this planet. So imagine 7 billion buckets of water. Of course, they can't be, sorry, I'm being a little silly. If all these buckets were scattered around the earth, they couldn't simultaneously reflect the sun, because some would be facing the sun, some would be on the other side. So anyway, the metaphor, any metaphor falls apart when you chip away at it. Anyway, imagine one sun shining on 7 billion buckets of water, each one of those buckets of water reflecting the sunlight differently. No two are alike, just as no two people's experience is alike. That's what they reflected. And this is, actually, if you attended our Vedanta classes, reflected consciousness is experience. The sunlight reflected off of those buckets describes experience. 7 billion different experiences, but one light appears as 7 billion reflections, but it's still one light. It's the same light. The same light of the same sun is reflected in all of these buckets. Light is light, so therefore there is not 7 billion lights, there is not 7 billion suns. One sun, one light, but 7 billion reflections, 7 billion unique human experiences. So this is what we understand. And when Sri Krishna says, Mama Amsha, this is what it means. Not an individual bit of sun. The sun has no parts, right? It's not like they're in that disk of the sun. It's one. There are no individual parts. There are no individual rays. But when the sun is reflected by these 7 billion pots, we have an apparent division of one light into 7 billion. But notice again, apparent. And here we're back to our language, the difference between apparent reality and absolute reality. At the level of absolute reality, there is but one all-pervasive consciousness. At the level of apparent reality, there are 7 billion of us having our individual, unique experiences, but that's an apparent reality. Absolute reality is you are that one unchanging, all-pervasive consciousness. And just a concluding word here. This is not a matter of belief. This is something you have to understand. In fact, I made a note. The commentator made this little note. He said, the commentator is Sridhar Swami, who comments on the entire Bhagavata Purana. He says, Etat atirahasyam. This is the greatest secret, that 7 billion individual experiences are all manifestations of one consciousness. I'm putting these words in his mouth. So he says, Etat atiras rahasyam. This is the greatest of all secrets. Swabuddhaya can't read my writing. Swabuddhaya nishchetavyam. Nishchetavyam should be understood clearly, swabuddhaya, with your own mind. This is the highest of all secrets, with your mind. This should be understood properly, this should be discerned, that in spite of this apparent duality, 7 billion conscious experiences, there is but one consciousness. That consciousness is the so-called inner divinity, and through discovering that inner divinity, you discover it's more real than anything around you. Therefore, there is nothing for you to be afraid of. Suppose, just a final comment here. Suppose in a dream, somebody told you, you see that elephant? Not as real as you are. So in a dream, you meet a dream guru. We'll make this up. And the dream guru tells you, hey, that elephant is a dream elephant. You are more real than the dream elephant. Then you could be in the dream and see the elephant chase after you, and hey, who cares? Because you know you are more real than that dream elephant. This is the perspective of an enlightened person. An enlightened person experiences the world like you experienced the dream elephant, but like you know the dream elephant can't hurt you, you can discover that there's nothing out there that can truly hurt you. You are. That's a reference to the inner divinity, the essence of who you are, which is utterly unaffected by worldly suffering. Good. This is a good place to end our class. A couple of important announcements about our Sunday schedule. We're changing the schedule, as some of you know. On Sunday, tomorrow, we will have satsanga at 10 a.m. And for our online students, that satsanga will be live streamed. You have to figure out what time it is where you are. It's 10 o'clock Eastern time here. That satsang will be live streamed. Please come and join us. It'll be held in the small hall, but it's open to whoever wants to come. And then also Sunday, tomorrow, we are shifting our Vedanta class. So we've made several references to the powerful teachings of Shankaracharya. So we're studying his works on Sundays evenings at 5 p.m. And that class will run for about 1 hour. Immediately after class, we'll take questions on the text. So we'll have some Q&A associated with it. That's at 5 p.m. Tomorrow. For our online students, that class will be uploaded on Tuesdays. So you'll also have access to that class. So please come and join us for these programs tomorrow. And we'll conclude with our brief prayers at the altar. Om Gananahan Tva Ganapatigam Avamahe Kaving Gavinam Upamashravastamam Jeshtarajam Brahmanam Brahmanaspataha Nashrinvan Utabasira Saranam Om Mahaganapataye Namaha Ishvaro Gururhatmeti Murti Bheda Vibhagine Vyomavad Vyapta Dehaya Dakshina Murtaye Namaha Vasudeva Sutam Devam Kamsachanuramardanam Devaki Paramhanandam Krishnam Vande Jagadguru Om Sarve Bhavantu Sukhinaha Sarve santu niramayaha, sarve bhadrani pashyantu, ma kaschad dukkha bhag bhavet, asato ma sadgamaya, tamaso ma jyotirgamaya, mrityorma amritangamaya. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Om Tat Sat.